back to another episode of New England Beer Buddies. We're continuing our porter pour-off here, and we won't take too much of your time. We do encourage anybody drinking alcohol to follow the laws of their state and to drink responsibly. And I suppose that's all we really need. If you have questions about what this is all about, look at some of the other videos in the same series. It's kind of a multi-part deal. So first up today, we have something from Exhibit A Brewing, which is in Framingham, Mass. And I'll let Bart take it away from there.
So this is their Briefcase Porter, which I've had quite a bit and really enjoy. Exhibit A, I believe they're owned by the same people that do Jack's Abbey Brewery. And it's as you can see, it's kind of sort of a classic take on the porter. The color, is very consistent with the type. It's just I think it's just a very good sort of solid porter, and I'm anxious to hear what Garrett thinks of it.
All right, we'll find out in a moment. So with that, we'll take a sip, do our evaluation, and get back to you with our little commentary. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
So, of course, a good example of a traditional porter, like Mark said. There's a bit of a chocolatiness to it that I really enjoyed. It's very smooth, not really grainy or anything.
It has I noticed it has it's very strong sort of malt characteristics, like a very roasted malt. Not really much of any sort of unusual flavors. Nothing. I wouldn't say it's not even like anything coffee like or anything. It's just very general. Just the malts. There's a little bit of a sweetness to it, but it's just very, very smooth. The appearance is sort of quintessential porter with very little head. Very dark color. I mean, you really can't even really see even light go through it. But I just feel it's a very, very solid porter that I've had quite a bit of.
And it does, that chocolatiness is pretty smooth, and per their own description here on the back of the can, it is a brown malt, chocolate wheat, and chocolate malt. So there's definitely a good amount of chocolate to it, but it's nothing overpowering or beyond sweet. I think it's a very, very well done, well balanced traditional porter. Unless you have other commentary, we certainly could have more, but I think we've kind of covered the flavor and texture of it a bit, and we could certainly kind of do our own scoring here and come back with another.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. All right, so we're back for the second beer of this pairing. I'll talk about this one a little bit. This is the Town Line Porter from Oxbow Brewing Company. So this is actually our first main beer that we've done on this show. So it's a American porter, so pairs well as a comparison to the previous beer we just talked about. And other than that, it's do the initial thing color-wise. It's not letting too much light through, and I suppose the rest of it we'll tell you about in a moment after we've tasted.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Feel very similar to the previous one, the suitcase porter. I do feel it's a little bit less of a thick mouth feel. I feel, but it's not by much. It almost has a little bit. I don't know. It has. I feel the flavors aren't quite as strong.
No, it's very mild.
One. Yeah,
it's certainly mild. A lot of times with the porters, we're getting more chocolate or some other flavor like that. I'd say this is just closer to a kind of a roasty flavor, but nothing too strong or overpowering. It's really smooth. And overall, the The aftertaste changes a little bit from how it starts. Almost a little bit more sourness in there, I think. But it doesn't linger on too long. It's not really overwhelming, sticky, coating your mouth.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in the middle there. So, any other notes you want to share for now, or do we want to get to making our own notes here and come back around to it?
It's interesting. There's almost like an effect, like it felt like it almost had a little bit more carbonation, but if you look at it, you don't see any bubbles. It's a very it actually, I don't know, for some reason I've had other beers from this brewery, and I've mostly had like saisons and stuff, and it was something that almost reminded me something of that. I don't know if that might just be I'm associating it with that because this brewery also does saisons, but it's a very even though like the look and the flavor is very similar to like a traditional porter, there's something a little bit about kind of the mouthfeel and the finish that seemed a bit different.
Yeah, it's maybe brighter. It's not really fizzy, but
Right.
but brighter or fizzier kind of feel to it. It's a great observation. So that's great. I missed out on that one, but I think with that, I'm all set anyways to rate it a bit, and then we can go from there, and we'll be back shortly, I suppose, with the winner of these two pairings.
Yeah.
All right, so we're back with our final results for these two beers, for both our Briefcase Porter and the Oxbow Town Line Porter. The winner in this case was indeed the Briefcase Porter, which is the first one we ran. Quick correction, they're not affiliated with Jack's Abbey. Sorry about that. They are in Framingham, so there's just a lot of good breweries down there, and we kind of had a little bit of mix up, but we'll note that somewhere in the video when we push this out. So we're definitely the winner. A couple closing notes, I guess, from my end, and then over to you as well. The one downside, I guess I could say, with the Briefcase Porter was it was like a fairly weak aftertaste. It almost kind of went away. I don't want to say it tasted like a lager, but it kind of went away like that. So that was my downside there. But there were some big pluses where it didn't really get too sticky or overwhelm my mouth there. So I'm going to try and point out a plus and a minus for each, I guess. And I'll bounce this one over to Mark for any closing remarks, and then we'll go to the Oxbow in a second.
I felt like the Briefcase Porter was just, again, it's not like a super heavy, crammed with a lot of different, sweet, like vanilla or chocolate, or it actually did have chocolate, but it wasn't like really overwhelming in terms of like, it wasn't what I would associate with like a dessert beer. It was just very, well balanced. Just the sort of thing that you could easily have like, a couple of, and I just felt that it was, a very well, even though it wasn't the most maybe exotic or sort of groundbreaking beer, it was just perfectly or really well done, and I definitely really enjoyed it.
Agreed. And over to the Oxbow. So there were a couple interesting things going on with this one that we kind of chatted about off camera. Aroma, there wasn't really anything, nothing bad about it, nothing off about it, nothing wrong per se, but it didn't have as strong of aromas, even though it's a traditional American porter. Didn't have as strong of an aroma as some tend to, in my opinion anyways. There was almost a transition in the aftertaste as well to the bitter sour side. We couldn't really quite decide on that, but I almost tasted like a touch of citrus of some kind in there. There's something different there. So those are kind of two of the knocks against it. It is true to style for the most part, other than some carbonation things I'll let Mark talk about in a second. Certainly drinkable, but maybe not the most well balanced thing out there. So I'll let you close with your remarks on this as well. It
was something that I noticed where if you looked at the beer, you wouldn't see any bubbles rising to the top. It seemed to be pretty low in terms of carbonation, but on sort of, on the palate, on the aftertaste, you got more of that sense of, again, of bubbles, of tingling, which was very different from, I felt was in the Briefcase Porter, and was something I don't normally associate with the porter style. So I was kind of sort of surprised about that. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, again, like Garrett said, I felt it was pretty well balanced and definitely overall pretty, tasty beer. But it was something that was kind of unusual for a porter, I thought.
I would agree. So the winner for this pairing, and that'll move on to the next bracket, is definitely the Exhibit A Brewing Briefcase Porter, which is an American porter, and they're out of Framingham, Mass. So we'll see where they kind of continue to rank going forward. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you for the next episode. Thank you for watching.
Yep.
Cheers.